cabinet. And what I've done is I have some black walnut that I just got done machining down. I'm ready to put in the stiles and rails for the cabinet face. So I'm getting ready to glue this up right now. There's several different things a guy can do. He can put dowels in here to fix the stiles and rails together. You can just glue them on and glue them together on the ends, and that's just what I'm going to do with this, because there's not going to be a whole lot of weight on this. The doors are going to be really light, so I'm really not concerned. Now, the cabinet bottoms that I built, I actually did put the ends together with a biscuit joiner, but I don't think that's necessary with this particular application. So here we go. We're going to get this all glued up here. Applying glue to all the faces that are going to make contact on the plywood. This dry for a couple days. Now it's time to take off the clamps. Now I just have to sand this down to where this is nice and smooth, and get this glue residue off the corners. And seems like no matter how careful you are when you're putting something like this together, a lot of times there's a little bit of a lip here that you just have to sand down and clean up. Now that we have the cabinet face sanded, I have to make a couple of standoffs for in here. This is the bottom of the cabinet, so the vent hood is going to fit on the bottom of the cabinet just like so. Because the fan hood has to mount underneath the cabinet, I have to apply a little bit more area on each side in order to accommodate the mounting of the cabinet, so it can fit off, so the cabinet can fit flush up against the range hood, or the range hood can fit up flush against the cabinet. So those mounting pieces, or shims, standoffs, what do you want to call them, aren't anything special. They can be like 2 inches wide by 1 inch thick by 11 1/8 inches long. So this is some old growth Douglas fir that I had cut on the mill a while back, and it's good and dry. The first thing I want to do is start out with making a straight edge on one side. I could run this through the joiner several times, or I can just cut this on the table saw or bandsaw. And because you guys are looking, I'll just go ahead and do it on the bandsaw. It's a safer way of doing it. So I'll cut along that straight edge so I can have something to work off of. Now you guys can perform that same type of cut on the table saw. You can also use a jigsaw, or you can use a skill saw for that same cut if you need to. Next we go over to the joiner. We've got a good flat edge that we can work off of. Now I can go to the table saw and cut these at 2-inch width. Now lengthwise we could trim these off at 11 1/8. However, we need to also, this is 1 1/4 inches, we need to surface these down to an inch or 1/16. Alright, so these will go underneath here. And that'll give my range hood a place to mount anywhere on this. If I adhere this to the bottom of the cabinet, I don't have to put this up underneath here and try to hold it in place. I'll just go ahead and glue this. It's not going to have any structural value to it. It's just going to be able to be a bushing basically between the cabinet and the range hood. Now I have a couple of pieces of juniper here that actually Dad cut on his mill down in Oregon years ago, and it's been air drying for years. And what I like to do is, you know, this here's heartwood here, it's darker, and this has flecks of heartwood in it and knots. I like the variations. I like the different colors. I like the knots for a rustic country look. And some people might not like that. They might want clear, but I like the characteristics. They're interesting to me to look at. So I'm going to cut selections out of this and variegate. I'll make smaller boards out of this one here, and also make smaller boards out of this one, and stagger the light and dark wood to give it a interesting characteristic. Couple of good days to dry. It's been really cold out here, so now we're going to unclamp it. I cut these a little bit bigger, top and bottom and side to side, so that I can clean them up, square them up, and then sand them and finish them. I'll just have to remove all of the glue, and of course these stain from the metal on the bar clamps. You know, a guy can put cellophane or plastic or wax paper under here and keep that from happening, but I'll just sand all this down, clean it up, and square this up, and we'll be good to go. So up until now I've been focusing on the cabinet that is above the range and has the vent hood in it, because that's probably the most difficult piece that you're going to find in an upper. But that particular cabinet does not have shelf supports in it. There's no shelves at all because of the pipe, the vent pipe that actually goes up through the center of it. But with the rest of the cabinets, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting adjustable shelf supports, so you can have 2 or more shelves that you can actually adjust. So 6 inches from the bottom, I'm going to be drilling small holes 1.5 inches from the edge, on the inside edge. So let's say that this is a shelf. This will be able to be sitting at 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, and so on and so forth, up to, I think, 22 inches. So what we'll be doing is we'll be using a Forstner bit to plumb in 1/4 inch holes every 2 inches up to 22 inches and down to 6 inches above the bottom of the cabinet. So the bottom of the cabinet will be here, and 6 inches above will be a 1/4 inch hole, and then every 2 inches after that up to 22 inches we'll have more holes. And this is the shelf support that I'm talking about. So I'm going to drill 1 or 2 of these things and show you what I've got going on. So again, 1.5 inches from the back of the cabinet in, I scribed a line, a real light line, so I didn't dent the wood, so it's easier to sand out. And then the back side of the cabinet, I scribed a little pencil line all the way up. Then I measured 6 inches to the first shelf. Here's a couple of examples of shelf supports. Now I have a line marked on my Forstner bit that you probably can't see, but I can, for the depth that I want to go. So that's just one example. I don't need to bore you with the rest. But anyway, the shelf support will go in here, and then the shelf sits right on top of that. And so there'll be one on the front. This is the back of the cabinet, and then one on the opposite side. And I can make adjustments to 2 shelves. I can put 3 shelves, 4 shelves in there, however many shelves I want. And here's another tip, and I'm sure I might get somebody in the comments that would suggest this, and they would be right to do so, that I could set this little fence up here to 2 inches, and then all of your back line, you don't have to worry about lining up. All you have to worry about is lining up this way on the board instead of this way on the board. Well, as a matter of fact, maybe I'll just go ahead and do that. I talked myself into it. So you can just take one quick clamp and affix it to the temporary fence on the table. Go to your mark. And at the very end of a Forstner bit, there's a little pointed pilot edge, I guess you'd call it. With my thumb, I'm going to hold the Forstner bit down on the work, and then just take my fence and bump it up next to the back of the workpiece, still holding the Forstner bit down on the work so that my board doesn't move. I can set my quick clamps in the front and the back, or on each side of the table. And now my table, all I have to do is worry about my lining up along the line at the cross points where the hole's going to be. Okay, so we got finish on both sides of these, ready to assemble, and I'm going to see if it all goes together now. of things to consider. You got everything square. You have the front aligned to where your panels aren't offset. So you got everything nice and square, and you don't want the glue to set up on you. It's cool out here today, so there's not a whole lot of, you got a little more workability time. But the key is to get that box nice and square. So anyway, I'm going to go along afterwards with a wet rag and wipe up any excess glue. And we'll just let this dry and see how she turns out.